It was a bright Saturday morning when my daughter Abby arrived at the door, her baby girl Ella in tow. Abby smiled as she handed me my 1-year-old granddaughter, Ella squirming and thrashing in her arms, eager to explore the world. "Would you like some coffee?" Abby asked, a hint of puzzlement in her voice. She seemed surprised by the empty house. "Yes, please," she added, her voice quieter than usual. We had just met in the driveway where I'd finished loading my luggage into the car, ready to leave. As we stepped inside the house, Abby's eyes widened in disbelief. "Daddy, where is everything? Where's all the furniture?" she exclaimed. Her gaze swept across the vast, empty living room. "Everything is safely deposited," I replied calmly, trying to ease her confusion. "That box by the door is yours, by the way. I found it while tidying up. I wasn't sure if you wanted to keep it, so I thought I'd leave it there." Abby paused, the weight of the room's emptiness sinking in. Ella, in my arms, wiggled her way down and scurried across the floor, delighted by the newfound space. She was a curious child, eager to discover every inch of her environment. I let her roam, and as I glanced back at Abby, I saw her mouth agape in shock. Pouring us both coffee, I gestured for Abby to sit in the chair by the window. I had always enjoyed the view of our backyard from this spot, but I realized it might be the last time I'd enjoy it for a long while. Abby sank into the chair, still trying to process what was happening. "Daddy, what the hell is going on?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Well, I figured you'd understand this better than anyone, seeing as you've been at the heart of things all along," I said. "In fact, isn't that why you came to me? I thought you'd be the one to explain everything to me in a way that wouldn't upset me." Abby was quiet for a moment, looking as though she was struggling to piece everything together. Finally she spoke, though her words felt rehearsed, like a speech she had been dreading to give. "You know how much Mom adores you, Daddy," she began. "She knows how much you love her. But she felt like she was missing something. Like there was something more. She's always been with you, and she felt like she needed to be, well, somewhere else. She's gone for the weekend. She'll be back by Monday at lunchtime. When she returns, it'll be as if none of this ever happened. She promises it will be better for you. Better for all of us." Abby's voice trailed off as she stared at me, her face anxious, her eyes searching mine for some hint of approval or understanding. I sat there, absorbing the words. They were difficult to digest, even though I had been expecting them. "Abby," I said slowly, "I think you've missed a few key details here." I took a deep breath. "From what you just said, it sounds like your mother could have gone on a vacation or a spa weekend or something, but she didn't, did she? She went to meet someone." Abby nodded solemnly, but there was a shadow in her eyes, a sign of guilt that she couldn't quite hide. "I have a problem with this whole idea that it will get better for me," I continued, my voice steady but tinged with frustration. "How does leaving help anyone? It doesn't make sense to me. She deserves a weekend for herself, I understand that much. But I wish she had talked to me about it instead of making this decision without my knowledge." Abby shifted uncomfortably in her seat, avoiding my gaze. Her eyes flickered briefly to Ella, who had crawled across the room, her tiny body slowly moving toward the far wall. She looked like she was exerting herself, her little hands and knees working hard as she explored the vast emptiness of the room. But soon Ella collapsed, exhausted from the journey, and fell into a peaceful nap, her face serene and innocent. "So, your mom thinks we need help," I said, my voice softening. "But why couldn't she talk to me directly? Why involve you and all your siblings in this plan? It feels like there's more to this story than what you're telling me." Abby hesitated before replying. "We all support her, Daddy. We all think this is what's best. Even Ben knows, although we haven't told him everything." I frowned. "So, all of you, my children, know and support your mother in breaking her wedding vows? Even Ben, who knows firsthand how damaging this kind of betrayal can be." Abby shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "Not exactly, Dad. We haven't told Ben everything. But Kathy and I think it will be good for Mom, and for you. For all of us." I closed my eyes briefly, my thoughts swirling. "And what do I deserve, Abby? What do I get out of all of this?" Abby was confused, her brows furrowed in genuine confusion. "Daddy, I don't understand what you mean. What do you mean, what do you deserve?" I sighed, a heavy feeling settling in my chest. "You helped your mother reach the point where she felt she needed to leave. You aided in her decision to walk away, and now you're trying to make it seem like it's for the betterment of everyone. But she wasn't just going to a spa. She was meeting someone, Abby. And she's been planning this for weeks." Abby's face crumpled, and tears began to well up in her eyes. She looked down, unable to hold my gaze any longer. "You forgot one thing," I said quietly, my voice heavy with years of experience. "I handle all the online banking for the family, remember? I see all the transactions. I know about the dating app you helped her install. I know about the clothes and lingerie you both bought in Bath. I know what happened, Abby. And I know that today when she left, she got her nails and hair done, and then she went to your place. You were the one who explained everything, right? You were the one who came to me to tell me why she needed a break from her marriage. Abby was openly crying now, nodding quietly, her face pale and stricken with shock. I leaned back, my heart heavy but resolute. So yeah, you helped. You helped her leave, and now we're all trying to make it sound like it's okay. But I don't see it that way, Abby. I really don't. By now, Abby was sobbing uncontrollably, her tears staining her cheeks as she struggled to hold herself together. But the next thing I said only seemed to deepen her despair, and I could see the weight of the situation pressing down on her. She almost left, Abby choked out between sobs. The past few weeks have felt like when you were teenagers. Ah, the remark was a familiar one. She meant the intimacy, or perhaps the lack of it. Yes, I can agree, I responded quietly, my tone measured. I've noticed things have been more carnal and less loving between your mother and me lately. I paused, reflecting for a moment. Personally, I wouldn't call it the best. And I'm guessing your mother didn't exactly agree with my approach. She's probably wondering how it compares to this weekend. Abby flinched at my words, recoiling as if struck. Her reaction, however, startled Ella, who let out a soft hiss before her tiny face twisted into confusion. I quickly reached out, gathering her into my arms, rocking her gently to calm her down. Babies, I thought, are always so sensitive to the mood around them. It's incredible how they can sense the emotions in the room. I'm sure it didn't take much convincing to get your mom to agree to meet him, I said, shaking my head slightly, knowing Abby wouldn't want to hear it. The silence that followed felt thick with unspoken understanding. Abby's eyes filled with realization, but she stayed silent. I noticed Ella resting her tiny head on my chest, slowly falling into a peaceful sleep. As I held her, my thoughts wandered, and I shifted back to the conversation. There's something important I need to point out, I said quietly, my voice cutting through the tension in the room. Your mother may never have been with anyone else, but neither have I. Our relationship has always been pure because of that. It's simple. It's all we've known. But Abby, you knew when you met Dale that you weren't a virgin. You had other relationships before him, so you had something to compare him to. And now your mother will have the same. After this weekend, she'll have her own point of comparison. Abby's face twisted with confusion, and I could see that she was struggling to follow my line of thinking. So even if she says nothing has changed, I continued, I'll always wonder if it has. If the dynamic between us, between your mother and me, can ever truly be the same after this weekend. And I think she'll carry that with her, whether or not she admits it. Once Ella had settled into her nap, I gently placed her in Abby's arms, giving her a moment of peace before I returned to my seat by the window. I could see the sadness in Abby's eyes, but I needed to finish what I had to say. The last point I want to make also explains the emptiness of this room, I said, gesturing to the vast space around us. It's also a bit of a history lesson. Earlier, you said that your mom deserves this weekend away, because she's always been there for you kids, but you didn't understand why. Let me remind you. I leaned back, my mind traveling back to when your mother and I were much younger. Do you remember the story of how your mom and I met in high school? She was just finishing secretarial college, and I was doing a 2-year internship with Bob Jacobs. It all changed when we found out we were expecting you. We were just kids ourselves, barely 18, but we had to figure things out fast. Your mom had always been more mature than I was, and I don't think either of us fully understood what being parents at that age meant. I paused, reflecting on those early days. We got married young, even though we had planned to wait a few more years. We needed a place to live, a place where we could start our life as a family. We were lucky to find an old, run-down 3-bedroom apartment in Fairford. It was cheap, but it needed a lot of work. Your mom's relatives helped us with a deposit, and it was so dilapidated we bought it for next to nothing. But somehow, we made it work. It was barely affordable on my salary, but we managed. A small smile tugged at the corners of my mouth as I remembered how everything changed so fast. And then, to our surprise, we didn't just have one child, we had twins. You and Ben. The first year in that house, it felt like a construction site. But we had good friends, like Bob and some tradesmen I worked with, who helped me. They taught me how to fix things. It was hard, but it was worth it. We turned that place into a beautiful home, but there were always challenges, always something else to spend money on. The car needed replacing, and as you two grew older, we needed new furniture. I glanced out the window for a moment, lost in thought. You know how that feels, don't you? You're living that reality with Ella now, always having to make ends meet. Eventually, when you were old enough, We could put you in childcare, and your mom was able to find work at a surgical clinic. It wasn't easy. We had to stretch every dollar, but it worked. Your mom was working part-time 3 days a week. It wasn't luxurious, but we managed. I looked at Abby, seeing her tear-streaked face and the dawning realization in her eyes. Then your mom wanted another baby. She'd always dreamed of having 3, and Katie came along 5 years after you. But even with Katie, we faced more challenges. New expenses, new responsibilities. School uniforms, clothes that were outgrown too quickly. It was a constant cycle. But we did it because we had each other, and we were always there for you. Your mother was always there, no matter what. And now, she feels like she needs this break. I get that. But it changes everything. For years, I worked tirelessly, 6 days a week, to ensure that my children could participate in activities that I never had the chance to experience growing up, joining the Brownies, Cubs, school trips, and summer camps. Each of these experiences came with a cost, and it was only through my relentless work that we were able to afford them. I did this not just for their sake, but to give them a childhood that was better than my own. At the same time, your mother and I were doing everything we could to save, always planning for the future. Our hard work finally paid off on our 10th wedding anniversary when we were able to purchase the land that we now call home. To mark the occasion, I surprised your mother with a weekend getaway to the Chester Hotel in Cirencester, a special treat that marked the beginning of what would eventually become Gibson's construction. Things had started to blossom after that, and the future looked promising. Over the years, you kids never wanted for anything. Your mother never had to return to work, and she could always be there for you. But despite everything, I still worked long hours, 6 days a week, just to keep things running smoothly. That's why your mother was always so present in your lives, and I was often the one who had to miss important events. This house, which we had worked so hard for, eventually became part of Gibson Holdings' real estate portfolio. And now, it is merely a property to rent out, as my focus had shifted. I had been mulling over my future for a while, and that's when the realization hit me: I had to make a change. Abby, her confusion evident, asked if I was planning to divorce her mother. I could see the worry in her eyes, but I reassured her that it wasn't something I had decided yet. It would be Claire's choice if she wanted to divorce me. But I didn't hide the fact that, given the situation, I had serious doubts about our future. She might enjoy her weekend so much that Craig might become her future, I said, though it was hard to stomach, knowing that Claire was still married to me. Abby was still upset, clearly hurt, as she asked about what would happen to her mom. I had already ensured Claire's financial security, and she had several real estate options available to her. The plans were all neatly organized in a file box, with detailed instructions on what she needed to do next. The only stipulation was that Claire couldn't cohabit with anyone else, or she would have to find a place on her own. As the tension in the room built, I stood up, signaling that it was time to call it a day. I picked up the box containing Claire's documents and made my way toward the door, with Abby following me. "I've already told you what I deserve," I said, my voice steady. "I've earned your respect, your loyalty, and your love. But since that didn't happen, I'm going to be gone for a while. It might be weeks, months, or even years." Yesterday, I had closed Gibson Construction, a decision that signaled the end of one chapter in my life. Gibson Holdings would continue to operate, as we still owned numerous properties, but I was ready to sell half of them. Today, in fact, marked the 15th anniversary of Gibson Construction's founding, and yet I had no reason to celebrate. My relationship with Claire had crumbled, and I was left to pick up the pieces. I had planned a surprise for our 25th anniversary, a month-long cruise. It was meant to be a celebration of everything we had built together, but Claire had other plans. She had chosen to spend the weekend away with someone else, and I was left to go on the cruise alone. I cancelled her ticket and got a refund, but in the end, I knew that it was exactly what I deserved. After helping Abby put Ella in her car seat, I placed the box in the back of the car and cancelled my cell phone service, not wanting to be reached for work matters. "You can still email me," I said. "Let Ben and Katie know what's happening. But not your mom," I added quietly. "I need time to think it over." I kissed Abby on the top of her head. "Take care, sweetie," I whispered, and walked away without looking back, knowing that this was the last time I would be with them for a while. 3 years later, I returned to Fairford for a wedding. Ben had married Fiona, a local girl from Oxford, and it was a big day for our family. I didn't want to disturb the couple on their special day, so I sought out the vicar to discreetly find my way into the church. The reception was being held in Cirencester, a lavish affair, but I was only focused on getting there without making a scene. I had kept in touch with my children throughout my travels, via emails and FaceTime, and although they were remorseful for their roles in what had happened, I assured them that I was fine and that we should look forward to better days. Ben, however, had been angry when he found out the details of everything, and I had to work hard to mend our relationship. It wasn't easy, but eventually, he came to understand and forgive his mother. Claire reached out to me several times, explaining her actions, but I couldn't bring myself to reply. Instead, I let her know that I needed more time, and I left her to contemplate everything on her own. She admitted that, despite how nice Craig was, he wasn't me. But it didn't matter. I was already gone. Through all of this, I still made sure my children had gifts and cards for birthdays and Christmas. I even attended Katie's graduation without their knowledge, and I was there when Abby gave birth to my second grandchild, a boy named Tom, in my honor. I left a teddy bear with a note saying, "Grandpa loves you," and asked the nurse to take a picture of me with him before I left. My travels took me across the world, from America and Canada to South America, the Caribbean, and Australia. I spent months in the Far East, and I visited family in France and Lanzarote. It was an incredible journey, but in many ways, I was still alone. Despite meeting some wonderful women along the way, I never stayed with any of them for long. It was hard not to be angry at Claire for how everything had turned out. As I watched the wedding unfold, I slipped quietly into the church. Ben had insisted that I take a seat next to Claire, and though I couldn't be there at the start of the ceremony, I made my way in when I could. When Claire saw me, she started to cry softly, and my daughters both gasped when they noticed me. Katie's face lit up with recognition, and Abby almost fainted, but both of them had tears of joy in their eyes. After the ceremony, Ben walked past me, his smile so wide it seemed to split his face. Fiona beamed too, and as she passed, she whispered a heartfelt thank you. I was finally home. It had taken a while to get here, but I was where I belonged, with my family. I had earned the right to be part of their lives again, even if it had taken me years to get here.